Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Crown Report. My name is Brittany. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry about the delay yesterday, but there is so much royal news to talk about, especially regarding Catherine, the Princess of Wales, because I really do think Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace, I think they're going to approach royal engagements rather differently. I got some theories and some things to talk about because obviously Catherine has been working so much more. She is defying my expectations, which is always a fantastic thing. I am so glad that we've gotten to see her at least 5 engagements over 4 days between the month of January and the first week of February. That is so much more than I was anticipating. I'm so glad Catherine is feeling better. And I think we can deduce some things there about what the future might hold. We also have the Swedish royals and some of the other Scandinavian royals reacting to the recent school shooting there in Sweden. And we had the king and queen up there, and Queen Sylvia is very emotional about this because it is the first school shooting there, or the largest in terms of deaths school shooting in the history of Sweden. 10 people passed away tragically, 11 if you include the shooter as well. So this is something that's going to be, I think, reflected maybe a bit in the royal family going forwards. And there's a call from Sylvia that to return Sweden to what it used to be, which has some interesting, you could say, geopolitical implications. Anyways, there is lots of others to talk about as well. We have Marius Borg Høiby. In that case, that continues because we have one person who was part of this case who has now been publicly identified. I think it's hard sometimes to go with the translations, but it seems like she wasn't behind the reveal. I thought she was. She was not, but she has confirmed that yes, it is true. So that is one thing to look at as well, because she initially, when she was told about it, she actually went to the police station to tell them how wonderful he was until they revealed evidence of him doing something to her that she had no idea had happened. So, obviously, very serious things here going on. We also have a wedding in Greece coming up on Friday, and we have the future husband and wife going to the church ceremony. And this is like, so feels very last minute. It feels like he just didn't even get divorced a year ago now. And I am calling it because there is a video that showed up on social media of them arriving, and she definitely has a bun in the oven. I am almost 100% positive that she is pregnant. This is a shotgun wedding. I feel bad for his former wife because they were married over 10 years, didn't have any children. So I'm wondering if that was a factor. So many things to go over today. I got so much on the Royal Wire itself, the newsletter. So, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. But let's start with the Princess Catherine piece. So, let me find a picture of her real quick now that I'm thinking about it. And she went to the National Portrait Gallery with a group of children, and it was so cute. There's even a picture. I shared it on X in case you didn't know it, but there's a picture of her, and one kid has it's this little girl right here has her finger up her nose standing next to Catherine, which I thought was so darling. But this was definitely a huge surprise. We were not anticipating this. And what I have noticed about Catherine and her future engagements is that I feel like they are not being announced until right before. So when they initially had said, because of how sources kept saying, she's still on an amended calendar, she's slowly getting back. This is, this recent activity is not indicative of future activity. I feel like we're all getting a bunch of different things at the same time. But here's what I think is happening. And it's not speculating about her health, but trying to make logical deductions so that we can foresee into the future. So obviously, she is still technically recovering from cancer. She had a major abdominal surgery in January of last year. We don't know how invasive that was, how that maybe has changed her digestion, her various other things internally. We don't know how that has changed. You add on to that chemotherapy and the damage. And so I want to say at this point, I think what's going to happen here with Catherine is that Engagements will not be announced until basically she's in the car or walking out the door feeling well that day. So I think what might be happening here now and in the future is that Catherine will have things on her calendar and the media will know certain things. They'll get a notice that, hey, she's going to be at the National Portrait Gallery tomorrow morning. And they'll get that probably at 5 p.m. But it's all contingent on her feeling that day. Is she feeling well? Whether or not she's feeling, sick or frustrated or just having some issues that morning, the schedule can be amended. So, what I think this means is that if you are going to London and you follow all the royal journalists like I do, because how I learned about the dog and duck that Catherine and William were going to do is that they had announced it the day before. So I got to meet her because I was following all the royal reporters, heard where the engagement was, and went there and hung out. They do that sometimes, not other times, but I really do think in the future, even in sort of big things like that, we will not get an indication until maybe an hour before the event whether or not Catherine actually plans to attend. So this is a bit of a change. Other royal families can put out their calendars quite a bit in advance because they don't have the same security risks and media interests that the British royal family does. So I think this is where we're going for the future. So like there's a part of me that's like, I totally get it. I love it. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, darn, if I was traveling and I was there and I missed her and I could have been there and made arrangements, that would be frustrating. But I do think this is going to be the big change going forwards. I think, for example, for the BAFTAs, I imagine we might not get any indication until about an hour before the event. So when it comes to Catherine joining William at the recent Holocaust Memorial, we did not know about that until right before. So I think this might be a more consistent thing in the future. So I think that makes total and complete sense. I think until literally she's dressed, she's feeling well, and out the door. Like you could get dressed. I've had this thing happen when you're sick, is that you get dressed and you're like, oh gosh, I thought I was okay, but I'm really not. And then you go back down and lay down. That's happened to me a time or two. And I think that will be the same case with Catherine. So unless she is in the car, out the door, I think that's going to be the future. And so Carol asked, which is a great question, could this be temporary until everything is solidly with her health? It could be, it could not be. I'm not sure. I can't totally say. Now, what I will say about the situation, which again, I caution, and I've said this before, caution Catherine and William to make sure they navigate this very carefully. Because I have heard rumblings, especially I would say in the Netherlands recently, that King Willem-Alexander is the quote unquote holiday king, that he's going on too many holidays. I've heard similar things from King Frederick, although it doesn't extend to Queen Mary because sometimes they see her more than they see him. So I would say always is that they have to be careful not to be seen as being not doing anything. That's always the danger. Because I was really worried when they were first reporting some of this. I was like, well, what does this mean that she's not going to do a lot of the things? I'm like, does that mean we'll see her like once a month, like once every 3 months? Like, what does it mean? And granted, I think they're cautioning because of the health issues, potential delays, potentially she's not feeling well. She doesn't feel up to doing something 100%. She's like, oh, please, let's make sure they know that my schedule could be light. But to me, this actually seems pretty consistent with what we've seen Catherine and William do before. I feel like this is actually pretty consistent. So I think she is trying to get back to a full schedule. But she has this caveat there, which makes complete and utter sense, is if I'm not feeling well that day, if, I got something from the doctor or they had to do an additional like test or something and I'm exhausted or what have you, because we don't know what maybe, although she's done with chemotherapy treatments, maybe there might be an immunotherapy treatment that she's also continuing or something to that effect. Don't know, just saying that could be a possibility. Is that this gives them an out in case there's a couple weeks where she's not seen. Because one of the things that has been around about Catherine and William for years and years now is that they're work shy. This has been around for well over a decade. I've heard this rumbled across the blogosphere, I guess you could say, or across forums and stuff. So I've always thought, like when I first heard that, I was like, she's gone all of 2024. You don't want to look like you're taking advantage of something. But to me, this totally defies my expectations in a fantastic way. And I think based on what we've seen, I think this is what we're looking at for the future, is that she has stuff on her calendar. She is trying to get back to a full schedule because I think she wants it. She also, it's nice to get out. It's nice to not feel so sequestered in your home, not feel sick. You want to get out and you want to do things. I think sitting at home I don't want to say feeling sorry for yourself. I know that's some people's cases, but just feeling home, not getting out, not interacting with people, I think can bring down your mental health more. It's good to get out and, get the fresh air, interact with people. So I think when it comes to Catherine here, I think to the best of her ability, she wants to get it back up to more of a full schedule. But at the same time, she also knows that her post-cancer reality is different now. And so she has to approach things with a little bit of a different air. And I think that is completely fine. I think I understand now where this is coming from. I mean, this is just my supposition, but I think this is going to be forwards. And Lady Aviator says, we also have to remember that they do a lot of work behind the scenes, and the work that we will never see. Simply not being seen in public every week doesn't indicate that they are not working. That is true, but that also doesn't work sometimes, because part of being royal is being seen. Actually, that's a huge part of their job, is actually being out in public. And if they're just doing it privately and we never see it, did they ever do it? That's a big question. Now, of course, they probably did, but it's kind of like there's a philosophical joke, is like, or not a joke really, but a philosophical thing. If a tree falls in the wood and there's nobody around to hear it, did it make a sound? So if there's nobody to see it, did they actually work? I think that is a good thing to remember, because they have to be seen. They can't just do things behind the scenes and call it good. You have to be seen if you're a royal. You just do. So I think that's the future that holds for them. So let's look at one of the very cute, I know a lot of people mentioned it on the live stream the other day, but let's go ahead and look at Catherine's here. Little, very sweet moment with a little girl. And she goes up, she's done with this. They make jumpers and socks at this factory. And then she heard this little girl calling her, and she ran out. Got to say, love this outfit. I need to do a best and worst list. I had them all petered out. I had the intro and conclusion done so I can do the recording, but I haven't finished it. Well, haven't totally started editing it yet. So it'll be a second, but let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this here.
What's your name? Can I shake your hand? What's your name? Hello. Very nice to meet you.
So they're showing this, that she'd gotten in the car and was about to go. And I guess she said, no, let me stop. And I think this is, again, a great little thing to do. These great bits that royals do is what really matters. And again, this is why they've got to be seen, because then you get gems like this. And this goes so much further than some other things. So, John Masood, how beautiful our Brittany is. Why, thank you, John. That is very kind of you to say. Thank you so much here for the super sticker. I really do appreciate it. It helps the channel. And I know not everybody is all that interested in the Crown Report. I love doing them, though. I love researching them. So fun. So let's keep going here. I love it that they move like 10 feet. I thought that was really funny. And so we got a little bit of this already, but and she does a little run, which is very cute. I love that the camera guy right there, he's like, oh my gosh, gotta get the shot. So let's see if we can get to their kind of intercutting, which I guess they can do, but let's get back to here.
What's your name? Can I shake your hand? What's your name? Hello. Very nice to meet you. Is this your...
And I love that you can actually hear her voice, because that doesn't always happen. So, love it, guys.
Is it squishy? Yeah? Let's feel. Oh my goodness. Oh. Does it? No. Oh no, it's lost its squeak, hasn't it?
I love it. The kids like, my banana squeaks. Squeak my banana for me. It's so kids. You gotta love kids. These moments with children, I think, are where Catherine truly does shine. And I should do a whole video on this or maybe a part of a Crown report, but I hate the idea that people keep going, oh, she's continuing Diana's legacy. She's continuing Diana's legacy. And people say that about Meghan too. And guys, the best thing to do is to have your own legacy. It's to have your own legacy. Don't be trying to copy somebody else's because you will fail every single time. And I think this is where Catherine really does shine. She's different than Diana, and that is perfectly fine. She loves kids. She loves interacting with kids, and she really does shine here.
But thank you for coming to say hello. I heard you saying hello from all the way back there, so I wanted to come and say hello to you. Very nice to meet you. And you. Thank you. You want to say hi?
It's so cute. It's because she wasn't supposed to do this, so obviously everybody had to scramble, and it's just a great little moment.
Very nice. Yeah. I want to come and see your village and see what's going on here and see this amazing factory. Yeah. Do you know what they make inside here? They make socks and jumpers. Very interesting.
So I love that she actually says, when asked, are you a princess? And I love that she answers, yeah, because little girls think of being princesses. You know, we watch different things and we think princesses. And I wonder what is going through that little girl's mind when she meets an actual princess, because she doesn't probably totally have the concept of it, because you have very much a Disney concept, I would say, at this age of what a princess is. So I find that super fascinating. I will absolutely love it. And I think it's a great thing for her to do, just to interact with kids and go, yeah, it's like a simple question. Are you a princess? Yes, I am. And the girl's like, she probably doesn't even know quite what to say, because she's like, you don't look like the Cinderella. But I think it's a time she'll look on very well. And Lizzie B asked, will Princess Catherine be able to show up royal duties abroad this year? That is a question we have heard no, but they might be just, again, pumping the brakes and making sure that she might be able to do something, but not overly promising. I think that's a way to do it. I mean, we've heard technically no. That's as far as I'm aware. Things could change, though. We're just in January. As she gets a firmer footing, she might go, yeah, I feel better. I feel good. Like, I'm enjoying this. Like, you know, she's kind of almost got to, because she almost basically took a whole year off. So she almost kind of has to get back into the flow of it. So that's just going to take her a minute. Oh, so Cheryl T in Oklahoma, thank you so much for the super sticker. Said Brittany and Miss Pippa, I had a 2-month Crohn's relapse and it was very isolating. So I know the Princess of Wales is enjoying getting out and meeting people. She is so good with children. She'll be a wonderful queen. Yes, I think that's 100% correct, Cheryl. I think she probably was wondering at first. She was, a little nervous to get out and about again. But I think as she does it more, she's like, oh gosh, I have missed this. She probably wasn't sure. That would just be my thing, because I'm like, am I ready to get back? Are people going to accept me the same way? Are they going to look at me differently? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of emotions that are processed in that time, and she probably feels very different, and so she's wondering if people are going to react differently to her. And so I think getting out, having these wonderful interactions is, I think, very grounding and very probably encouraging for her. So thank you so much, Cheryl. I really do appreciate it. And so I am so hopeful. Marjorie says, let's hope they visit the US in 2025. It might be 2026 because of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. There has been talk that a royal will come over in 2026. Talks of state visits too. So yeah, let's go ahead and keep going.
Yeah, so maybe when you're older, you're going to have a look in there. It's incredible what they're doing in there. Yeah. Very nice to meet all of you. Yeah. Thank you. Hello. Hi. Thank you everyone for coming to say hi. I
was just going to say, I was like, did Catherine mean to take her banana? I'm sure she was like almost distracted, like thinking it was her clutch or something for a second. But I love that. Oh, let me give you back your banana. But that was really great. We see a couple of different angles. I don't know how long. It didn't seem like she stayed there long. Really, was there just to talk to the little girl. but very sweet interaction. Again, very sweet. We got all the royal photographers there moving, some members of the royal staff getting there, getting everything ready because this was definitely not expected. Is that Catherine's assistant? That was really funny. She had a huge reaction. Oh, did the little girl throw it? Oh, she threw it, I think. Oh, I totally missed that. The little girl threw that. That's hysterical. And I always think Catherine is one of those people where she's kind of just, I don't know if pinches herself is the right word, but she's like sometimes like, wow, people actually come to see me. She's, it's kind of, I'm sure, surprising in some ways. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other engagement she did that was a big surprise, which is going to the National Portrait Gallery with a bunch of school children who are 4 and 5 years old. She arrived there with them in a coach. And you can actually see, guys, right here, this is actually a royal coach. So you will see a very similar coach going to like ferrying members of royal families and stuff, or the British royal family to various events like trooping or a couple other things, like most recently, like the coronation and stuff. This is a bus. So this would like basically go with the extended members, like the Gloucesters and the Kents. This was a transportation that they would take. So. And we can't see, but there's actually a huge slew of photographers, probably 30 or 40 of them there. Photographers, videographers, journalists, all there because they were told specifically about this event. And it's part of her Shaping Up framework, which she recently announced. And so part of this effort is for them to go through the National Portrait Gallery, and they're there to kind of understand and know how to make their own self-portrait. So you can see Shaping Us there. And so just a little bit of information about it, guys. So it's called the Shaping Us framework, which is a system designed to describe social and emotional skills in a clear way, which can inform and inspire action across society. And Catherine hopes it creates a happier and healthier society, because the whole impetus of Shaping Us is if you can get to children when they're at the critical ages of 0 to 5 and give them the best foundation, the end result after, you could say, 20, 30, 40, 50 years is that you will see a happier, healthier society. And so she took this trip with the young school children to participate in the bow beam tree activities. And this is to help them discover the stories of people through portraits, listening to audio recordings, using props, exploring facial expressions, and finally, by thinking about their own lives, feelings, and thoughts while creating a self-portrait. So this is from the Telegraph, and apparently while they were at the event, Catherine said, it's such a great way for children to engage and understand other people's perspectives in a creative and less intimidating way. They don't have the language yet, but they're finding ways to talk about emotions and feelings and understand them. I'm really excited to be using portraiture to explore social and emotional skills because I feel like it's such an untapped potential, but also to make it accessible to lots of kids. So it's not just in school, but something that's embraced by community. And so I will say with this as well, this is kind of awesome because she's actually combining two of her patronages, which is the National Portrait Gallery and Shaping Us. So although I guess Shaping Us is her program, not really the same way. And so let's see if we keep going. Looks like they're having a lot of fun. This little girl spent a lot of time around Catherine. Let's see. Another girl went to like sit in Catherine's lap later. It looks like they're having a lot of fun with the kiddos. And I love this. The kiddo is like totally wrapped around Catherine. There's another one right there. What you may have not seen there in that little brief interaction Let's see if we can pause it right at the right moment here. Is that Catherine, once again, on this trip, is actually just using her eternity bands. And so this is a new switch, something we'll see more of. I always thought it was interesting because some people would talk about maybe potentially for certain trips that Catherine might have been using a replica of Big Blue, as some people call it, her engagement ring. And because I was surprised that she would wear it in certain places, just given the security risks and those sorts of things. And it's something that I think is great that she's switching it out. And I think it's kind of gives her more opportunities to have moments where she doesn't have to wear the big ring, because I mean she would wear it everywhere. Like she would wear it digging in the dirt. And so it's like for her to take it off was huge. Like before 2024, we had basically never seen that ring off her finger. This is not like Meghan Markle where her engagement ring disappeared for an entire year with seemingly no reason. Catherine was always wearing Big Blue. And so for her to change it up is really, really big. And so I thought that was really exciting and good to see her doing it yet again, and good to see her also be so natural with the kids. And she's not forcing herself on them, which I feel like sometimes is what happens with Meghan, is that they're naturally gravitating towards her and sort of clinging to her because they like her. They have a natural connection with her. There's a little bit more there too that we can see. All the kids hanging out. I think maybe little girl just again popping down in Catherine's lap. I think a lot of little of them did it because they're like, oh, I want my turn. And you could see she had she had one of the little girl's hands in hers. Aw. Very sweet. Little kids are so adorable there. Catherine interacting with the kids and trying to interact with as many of them as possible. Because one was like, oh, you are my friend. And this little girl wanted to sit in Catherine's lap. So cute. She does. I saw it very briefly. Let's see if it happens. I had it in a different shot, but maybe. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Again, these are children just naturally interacting with Catherine. Catherine does obviously speak to some other people who are part of the National Portrait Gallery, and then she does exit. So actually, guys, when I was going to London last year, one of my plans was to actually try to go to the National Portrait Gallery because I haven't been. I was trying to think of what have I not done. I haven't done that. I think it might be free. Can't quite remember, but it's one of those things where it was like so exciting. Like I wanted to go, and then it just kept like obviously Denmark happened, and that was really exciting. So I went and did that. So guys, that is Catherine's engagements, last couple ones. So glad to see her out and about yet again. And I think it's a great reflection of the new way she is going in some ways. And so it's very, I think, encouraging for people. And I'm so glad that she's feeling better. But again, like guys, like I said, we will be seeing, I think, a change in how generally she approaches some things. So I think that is obviously perfectly fine and so great to see, guys. But we shall move on to what is going on in Sweden. So this story obviously broke yesterday and it's continuing to evolve. But it is interesting how Sylvia and some of the members of the family, there's been a lot of reactions to it. Let me just double check and make sure. All right, let me adjust because I pulled from the same website and switched the stories out because it's sort of an ongoing story. But it seems like Queen Sylvia is very, very emotional about this, which I can totally understand. And her comment was, where did the beautiful Sweden go? And so I was actually reading it was fascinating because I like to read through these articles. I don't always like them because they're kind of more from gossip magazines, but they give me a different perspective than the sort of bare minimum we get from sort of US sources. And I found it interesting that some people were complaining she still speaks Swedish with a bit of an accent because she speaks like 6 languages, guys. And so I'm like, I think she really does love Sweden and the country. She's been there since 1976, obviously, when she married her husband. But the attack, the shooting happened in Örebro, Örebro, which is up, I believe, to the north. And so she shared a little bit here, and we might have to listen to. Let's see if we can listen to a little bit of what she said, although it is in Swedish.
Ja, som jag nämnde till en annan journalist här, att min stora önskan är att vi alla tillsammans arbetar på Sveriges framtid. Det är så mycket som har hänt på sistone. Så jag tycker verkligen att vi ska ta fram det fina Sverige som har varit.
So she says in a part here, and we have, I feel sadness and think of the family members and everyone who has died. She told the gathered press. And
Med sin öppenhet, med sin gastfrihet, med att ta emot och ta hand om alla medborgarna. Så jag hoppas verkligen det som har hänt här hjälper hela världen att vakna.
And she also said here as well, I have a great wish for the entire Swedish people. Where did the beautiful Sweden go? I want to ask everyone to help build it up again and strengthen Sweden's good reputation. I don't want to say, but the name, everything that means to be Swedish. That's what I wish for now. A lot has happened lately, and it is my great wish, and the king's too, of course, that we all together build up the fine Sweden that was. So I feel like this is very much a sort of a very big shock to them. And I think a shock to everyone that this happened. And it was a school shooting at an adult school. So it was a place where people who, for example, maybe didn't graduate high school can go and take some remedial classes to get their degree. And the king said something as well. He said, we must listen to each other. We must be able to talk to each other and dare to help each other. It is something you have to learn, he said. So obviously, this is a huge, growing and evolving situation, and one that they're having very much an emotional reaction to. And he said, and that this looks like this was at the event later here. He said, the Queen and I are shocked, something you wouldn't think would happen in Sweden, but we are standing here at Riksbergska School in Örebro in the middle of Sweden, and we are extremely shocked. All of Sweden is shocked. Of course, I am thinking of the deceased and their families, their loved ones, said the king. And he continued, I think all of Sweden feels that those who have experienced this dramatic event, I also think of the school management who are involved in this atrocity. We all have students who are trying to get over this, move on and come back, and may have to try to concentrate on their future. I think of everyone who is having a hard time now. They are not alone. We are with them, and together we can help each other, support each other so that they have a tolerable life and a life to continue in the future. We should help each other with that and hope that this never has to happen again in Sweden. So big shock again, I think, to everyone there. They're definitely trying to encourage everyone and share their thoughts. This is a big deal, probably similar in some ways to what happened in Norway back in, I believe it was 2011 with the mass shooting there that killed over 70 people, I believe. And in this case in Sweden, 10 were killed. The shooter ended up ending his own life. So we have so much here and so much tragedy and hardship. And so I find it sort of interesting. I love geopolitics, guys, to be quite honest. And I'm curious because I know Sweden does have a situation where although this man was Swedish, not saying anything that the man was Swedish, he was not an immigrant, but there has been a huge surge in immigration to Sweden. And that has caused natural tensions because Sweden is very homogenous. And so it'll be interesting to see if that they might be watching what the United States is doing maybe a little bit more closely and maybe considering some options. I'm not sure, because overall violence in Sweden has apparently increased quite a bit. So if you have already what's going on, I don't know everything 'cause I'm not there in Sweden. And sometimes only the big stories get out. So you don't hear everything. And so I'm sort of fascinated because I read a book sort of on this situation, that the immigration in Europe overall, especially from the Middle East, and curious if maybe some changes might be made. Obviously, they still need to figure out what the motivation was, not saying that had anything to do with it. But if you have already things going on with immigrants and then you add this on, there's a growing tension with the violence. So I'm just curious maybe how things might be adjusted there. UK has similar problems. The United States has had some problems as well. Of course, this is a lot. So it seems to be very interesting. I don't know if anybody's from Sweden is on the chat. I can share any thoughts about sort of what is going on there that I don't know. So Asa says, yes, it was in nurseries and high schools next doors, but the shooter seemed to have targeted the adult schools. So I'm curious if maybe that wasn't his initial target. Let's not speculate. That's not where we're supposed to go here. But it's obviously very shocking, very shocking. And if you remember, actually, the mass shooting in Norway back in 2011, it was Crown Princess Mette-Marit's, her, I believe it was stepbrother, was actually one of the people who was killed in that attack. So that one had a very personal impact on her. So I don't think that will be the same situation here in Sweden, but something interesting to know that sometimes royals are personally and directly impacted by this. And it seems like Sylvia herself has been very impacted by this. Princess Madeline also gave a quote on Instagram saying, sending all my warm thoughts to those affected and their families in Orebro. And my thoughts also go to the students around Sweden who today feel worry and fear after this terrible event. And it's got to be interesting as well in Sweden, the United States, like that is a reality we all sort of live with. I mean, even every time I go into the theater, I think about it after what happened with The Dark Knight Rises, Dark Knight Returns, one of the two, one of the Batman movies, the shooting that happened in Aurora, I think it was, Colorado. So it's like, it's something you think about. It's a reality of the situation. You think about it in churches and various things, but when it happens in your backyard, then it becomes even more real that might be a possibility. So praying for all those who are impacted. And I like seeing that this is what royals are great at, is they're great at showing the emotions of the people, I think. And I think Sylvia and Carl Gustaf are doing that very well here. I'm glad, and just from a perspective of royalty, that they made the decision to actually go up pretty much right away to the community and share with the community. So yeah. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and move on to the case of Marius. So this one, I will say yesterday, guys. So this is case of Marius Borg Høiby. We've talked about this quite a bit. It's the case of the Crown Princess's son, Crown Princess Mette-Marit of Norway, who we mentioned before. She has a son before her marriage. He has had a lot of issues with the law after he was arrested in August last year. He was arrested again in September, although that looks to be a bit contentious because I guess the woman who he had the restraining order against didn't really want the restraining order. It is all very confusing, but also I do have to admit as well that because of the language barrier, of course, I'm taking these websites and putting them via Google Translate. So you will have to forgive me. I don't know all the nuances of the situation. And in fact, when I read part of this article yesterday, I was very confused. So I was like, wait, what's going on? But this is actually a new one today. And I feel like it explains it a bit better. So this is in regards to Lenny Meester. So that is her right there. She's there with Marius, and they were previously friends. They knew of each other and they were friendly. And in fact, when she was called to the police station, she reportedly was there to she thought to share with them about her experiences with Marius. And she, at the time, just had good things to say. But as it turns out, my understanding, and again, you'll have to forgive me with the language barrier. I'm sure I'm missing some nuance and some context, but my understanding is that she is a woman who they found evidence of him assaulting on one of his phones. And so they were there to share with her about that, and she didn't know. So that is the new case that has come out today. CEO Korg, which is the website we're using, was the one who reported on this. So I'm still not sure how exactly this information got out. If she leaked it, if they found out how exactly this got out. But anyways, the incident took place in 2018, and Lenny was reportedly completely unaware of the terrifying thing that happened to her. So we get here. And so she went to the police station, sensed peace and no danger when the police called her in for questioning. She could tell them about her good friend, whose alleged actions were very difficult for her to understand. She highlighted several good aspects about Marius before the police confronted her with the evidence. Now, that has got to be super weird. You're there at the police station to basically tell them, oh, yeah, my friend, he's great. He's this and he's that. And then they sort of drop the bomb here. And that's right. The shock was, in fact, Lenny had no idea that her friendship with the Crown Prince's son had a much darker background. Again, probably a little bit of exaggeration here. And so the news broke, and she has essentially confirmed that she was the woman who was assaulted. She said, I woke up to my phone falling to the floor as it was being rung by the Norwegian press and foreign press. I understand that there are many who want to comment on the case CEO Korg is reporting today, but I will not comment on it other than that it is true. So this is what she posted. She is 39 years old, so about a decade older than he is. And so she basically said, yeah, I'm not saying anymore, but I will just say it is true. It is true. And she says, mostly to protect myself and my family, and because I really feel for the person's family. So this would be Marius's family. This has to end. We can't have this anymore, or more victims. So I really hope this person gets serious help. And so I feel like this is what keeps going on here, is that there's so much of a paper trail here. There's so much going on with Marius, and it's not being dealt with. It just seems, again, this is me just reading into it. I don't know everything, but what I see is a young man who was indulged for probably far too long. And at some point, the dam was going to break. It was always going to break. This behavior, not everything, but some sort of this behavior started somehow in childhood and was not mediated, and you get this result at some point. Now, am I totally blaming his parents? No. He's an adult. He made his own decisions, but being how you were raised does impact certain things. And I think for a long time, he thought he could do anything and get away with it. What's sort of interesting too, is you consider the case, let's say, off topic and very different in many ways, but what's sort of come out, and the situation's a bit different, is that she had bad behavior in the press for sort of years. She was kind of catty with reporters, not like in an obvious way, but sort of an underhanded way, where if you're not really looking carefully, you might miss it. And with her co-stars and those sorts of things. And so there was a slew of bad behavior, troubled sets, you could say. It's come out where she didn't get along with a lot of people and stuff like that. And then at some point, the whole thing with It Ends With Us breaks, and she sort of reveals her real self to the world, and people start digging, and they find more and more and more, and it gets catapulted. And then she sues to try to get it all back in the bag, but it's not working because you've kind of been exposed, and there's no going back. And I think this situation, there's no going back, and this was always a problem. Sorry, that was probably not a great analogy, but I think this has been a problem for years. This has come out time and time again with every single article, that this has been a problem for years. People have been aware of this. Years, I think his mother has been cleaning up his messes, and this is one she can't clean up anymore. And I would say, he's made his decisions as an adult, and it's maybe not it needs to go through the legal process, but it's not people's place totally to really talk about it. But what I will say in regards to this situation is that because some of this happened probably on crown properties, on the royal yacht, and on different places where government resources were expended to the crown princely couple, but were abused potentially by extension or obviously by Marius, I think the crown prince couple has a lot to answer for here. I think they have a lot to answer for, and they're not really doing. They're like, well, he needs privacy. No, that doesn't work here. Doesn't work anymore. These are huge, massive cases, and he is doing all this stuff very publicly, has been for years. You have cleaned up after him, but that's not working anymore. But that doesn't mean you can go, oh, no, he deserves privacy now. You kind of lost that when somebody stole a government petrol card and used it for a year and you guys didn't know about it. And it was from a party for him. Like, you have to start addressing this, and it has to look like he's taking responsibility, or that you actually have to distance yourself from him, which I know for a parent would be really, really hard, because it's like you want to help him. But also, if he doesn't want to help himself, you can't keep dragging yourself down to try to save him if he doesn't want to save himself. Everything comes back to, I think, so much is personal responsibility here. And I think he has not had to deal with personal responsibility for most of his life. He gets most of his messes taken care of. And so this is a situation where it can no longer be. And so it says the news has attracted attention both at home and abroad, and several foreign media outlets have jumped on the bandwagon. I guess you could say me too. Probably because of Marius's ties to the royal family and the fact that new information and shocking details are constantly emerging. I follow this because I follow royals, but also it's like I want royal families to survive, because I think royals offer, again, like we saw with King Carl Gustaf and Queen Sylvia, a more emotional, I think, connection to the people than something like a head of a president or a prime minister can have, because they're with the people for all of their lives. Basically, they represent their people their entire life. And so I think they can have a more emotional reaction than a prime minister or president can. And so they are important. And if your head of state has a son who's breaking the law pretty consistently and you're not seeming to do with it, that is a problem. That is a problem. So we will see again where this story goes. I'm not sure. I hope he's getting help. Apparently, we discussed this a couple weeks ago. Apparently, he is done with rehab. He was there like probably a month or less. He did like run away from rehab at some point, then went back, spent less than a month, and then has a new girlfriend. So to me, all those things scream that he's not really dealing with this yet. So we shall see how it all turns out. I hope really for the best for him, and that he gets the help that he needs. So guys, we shall move on to another interesting story here. I was trying to figure out, what should we talk about here real quick? So I got to talk about this because I put this up on Twitter and I thought, am I crazy? But everybody else seems to agree. So we do have this shotgun wedding essentially in Greece. Now, obviously the Greek family is no longer reigning, but I remember I always thought Prince Nicholas and Princess Tatiana were very cute. I thought Princess Tatiana looks gorgeous. I liked seeing her at events. She always had a great sense of style. And they announced they were divorcing last year or separating. I don't know when officially they got divorced, but they announced in April. I went back and double checked. And he has a new fiance who he's going to marry on Friday. And I'm pretty sure 100% she is pregnant. So guys, watch this. Even has a bit of a pregnant waddle. I think at least. Maybe that's just how she walks. So guys, you can't really see much more, but what do you think? I think she looks a little pregnant to me. The waddle definitely was kind of a bit obvious there. You could see too, she's wearing something bulky. She could kind of hide it and stuff there, but I thought, yeah, she looks really pregnant to me. I even noticed the waddle. And actually, I noticed like the first time I really noticed a pregnant waddle was when I was a teenager, I think. And we were in, or maybe I was a young adult, we were in Italy or something. And I saw this woman walking around, and just from the back, just from the waddle, I'm like, she's pregnant. And she turned around, she was definitely pregnant. So she looks very pregnant to me. At least the waddle is there. There's a definite waddle. I just do feel sorry for Princess Tatiana. I feel sorry for her because I think, what if she couldn't have children and they were married over 10 years. This wasn't a short marriage. This was a long marriage. And he decided, yeah, I just really need kids, and left her for it. And I don't know that for sure. I don't know that for sure. But I find it rather suspicious that less than a year later, he's knocked up another woman, or knocked up a woman, and now they're getting married. I feel sorry for her, especially because if that was true, she's dealing with that emotions, and then her husband, former husband, moves on so quickly and gets another one pregnant, So I just really feel for her. I just feel sorry for her, because this would be hard. I would imagine very hard. She is apparently still living in Athens. Her father has quite a bit of money, so just wanted to share that. Glad you guys agree in the comments, because I'm like, am I crazy? But I'm like, she definitely looks pregnant to me. So guys, we'll have just a couple of bit short royal news things. I got most of the Royal Wire done, which is the newsletter that'll be attached to this video, but I want to add one article for more of a fashion blog I'm trying to do for royal fashion. So I just named it Royal Fashion News, but I'm like, I need a better name than that. So we shall see. So let's go ahead, and a couple quick things here real quick. King Charles is doing a documentary with Amazon, and it is about how he's going to show, not tell, how to transform people, places, and ultimately the planet. And so according to the Times, this series aims more than any other documentary he has done before to tell the world what the king stands for and what he is all about. So this is sort of interesting, because obviously he's not doing it with one of the British broadcasting companies, not specifically saying the BBC, but companies that broadcast in Britain. There we go. So he's doing it with Amazon. Interestingly enough, Melania Trump's documentary that's upcoming is also with Amazon, just saying. And then we have the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh have arrived in Kathmandu for a 6-day royal tour of Nepal. Prince William also met with some of the Earthshot finalists for Nature Metrics, and he did this whole display, and maybe I should find it here real quick, guys, about finding the DNA of a strawberry, and he did it with an influencer guy who does science videos. And I thought, this is great. So one of the things I thought of for royals in sort of the future, and you'll hear a bit of the music there behind you, but that they should do more and more, I think, with smaller creators. I mean, I see myself as one of them, but I think what we see in the news media is very much a shift away from mainstream outlets. Most people get their news not from the mainstream anymore, or they get it and they take a piece or two of it and shove the rest under a rug or something, because they're like, there's not, or kick it to the curb because it's not really worth it. We see a massive shifting in how news media is consumed, what people trust. It's not the mainstream. And so I think when it comes to the Royal Rota, I understand that they have to limit it for certain engagements. There's just not enough space. They can't have too many reporters or too many videographers and photographers. I totally get that. But I really do hope, and this has been obviously a challenge for me, even because I had to really call and beg Buckingham Palace for the correct coronation email, because I couldn't get one initially, and they kind of stonewall you going, oh, well, just email this general email, which of course nobody responds to. So I think they need to be more open to smaller outlets, and hopefully we get that in the future. This is obviously a bit different because he's an influencer guy, but they are finding the DNA of a strawberry.
Okay, so crushing the strawberry is going to release all of the cell content, and it's going to break as a DNA.
So they do all these little things, and William is his helper here. And the guy's obviously got a big Instagram following, and I think Twitter too. So
proteins of the cell membrane. Now we're going to add the extraction solution to the strawberry, and then we just mix it up again. The next thing
so I do think this is cool because I love strawberries.
we're going to do is strain off the strawberry so that we can,
although they're ruining the strawberries by putting soap in it,
just get the pure juice. Okay, so we've got some rubbing alcohol here, also known as isopropanol, and this is
so this is where I think the magic happens.
going to cause the DNA to precipitate out of the solution. And right here we have some strawberry DNA. Now,
okay, I gotta say that's pretty cool. I gotta say that's a really, really cool. I really love that. I think that's so fun. I really do love that. I love that they're kind of engaging with other people and finding different voices. I think that's great. I'm hoping to see more of that. But it's so so fun to see them kind of doing different things, figuring things out. This is definitely a massively changing media landscape. And so I hope we see that reflected more as well. So interestingly as well, Dame Anna Wintour, editor of the US edition of Vogue, was recently made a champion of honor by King Charles. So again, question is brewing. Is Catherine going to pose for US or UK Vogue? I believe I said this in last week's episode. I just think it would be really awesome of her to do a spread and have one picture show her port scar or something like that. I think that would be really empowering to other women who have gone through that. And we do have a birth announcement. Princess Beatrice gave birth to her second child, another daughter they named Athena Elizabeth Rose Mapelli Motzi. So she only weighed 4 pounds 5 ounces. So it seems like she came a bit early. They were also, I would imagine, this is just my supposition, in the hospital a bit longer because there was about a week between when she gave birth and the announcement. Usually it's a couple of days. So I'm wondering if they had just a little bit more medical intervention. And so they had to sort of delay it. But both mother and baby are doing fine. We also have another royal baby. Princess Maria Laura had her first child, a son named Albert, after her grandfather. And so her mother is Princess Astrid of Belgium, who's the sister of the king. And her father is Lorenz. He is an Archduke of Austria-Este. So he is part of a branch of the Habsburg family. So, and we have King Frederick and Queen Mary will have a busy March. And this actually goes for the Netherlands as well. Netherlands has 2 state visits, and so does King Frederick and Queen Mary. They're going to Finland March 4th and 5th, and France on March 31st through April 2nd. So I'm kind of excited about that. And so King Frederick will also make a trip to Japan. Crown Prince Christian has started his military training. And they have also changed out their head of communications, Linnae. She had a farewell reception. The king and queen attended, but they're going in a different direction with a more, I could say, newsy director, you could argue. So we'll see how that goes. And Prince Joachim and Princess Marie are going to attend the Invictus Games in Vancouver. So I find that sort of funny because the two, you could say, spares who have had a somewhat of a rough go, because Prince Joachim's children were stripped of their prince and princess titles and given titles of counts and a countess instead. So he wasn't too happy about it. Neither was his wife. They also kind of got shuffled off to the United States for not really a good reason. So we will see where that goes. And that wasn't his brother. That was his mother, by the way. So in Dutch news, the royals are taking a ski vacation. And so that is where the rumblings of a holiday king were growing. I saw that again. And some people were talking about how they were just doing a bit too much to fuel those. Again, I noticed somebody mentioned earlier about obviously allegations that Catherine and William were work shy, and that at one point William was working with the air ambulance service. Now, while I would agree that the air ambulance service was a great way for him to get, I think, some real world experience when it comes to what other royals do, they generally, especially future heirs, don't generally have jobs like that. They work as a royal. So Catherine and William did sort of have a different entry into the royal sphere, a very different one than a lot of their peers. You know, we have Catherine Amalia already working and going along with her parents. And obviously William was the heir of the heir, but William's experience was definitely very different. And I don't think his kids would probably get the same opportunities just because they'll desperately need people to work. So, and again, if people don't see him working, that's a big question. Again, royals need to be seen working, because otherwise those holiday king or holiday prince accusations, work shy, will begin to grow. You got to be seen to be believed, as Queen Elizabeth II herself said. And so in Japan news, I don't cover them too often, but there's actually a really interesting article because there's a UN committee on the discrimination against women, and they have called for a review of Japan's male-only succession laws. And Japan's like, oh, heck to the no, that's not your purview. And so they are now, and they have announced some countermeasures against this UN committee and blocking their funds from being donated to the High Commission for Human Rights from going to this committee. So they are not too happy about that. And I don't necessarily blame them, because that's not really in the purview of the UN to go, yeah, your succession laws. I think their succession laws have just decimated the monarchy itself. And well, it wasn't the succession laws necessarily. It's that they used to have a lot of princes and princesses potentially. And then they changed things to make it only a small number of people. And the women in the family cannot keep their title unless they marry another prince. There are hardly any of them left that are not 80 plus. And then you also have that they can only the succession only goes through the male line. And there were 3 girls born and 1 boy. And there was a massive amount of pressure for the now empress to have a son or have more children, and drove her a little crazy. So, like, it's not that it's just male only. It's just how they deal with it, I think, is sort of the problem. We also got announced today at the press conference from the White House that King Abdullah, I keep wanting to say Hussein, and I don't know why, that's Crown Prince, but King Abdullah is going to be visiting the White House next week to talk in part about the Gaza-Palestinian situation. So that should be interesting. There was obviously a bit in the Monaco royal family as they attended Fashion Week. So I have thoughts on that for Royal Fashion News for the best and worst list. And Martha Louise and Direct Verrett are a bit in trouble because they're not supposed to use her title as princess. But apparently their Netflix series is titled Princess and Shaman, which is not supposed to be what they're supposed to do. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but she's not supposed to use her royal title in any commercial endeavor, and that obviously breaks that. So we will see. The series, or I guess, or the show, movie, whatever, had its debut in Copenhagen recently. And then the King and Queen, and I tried to get access to this documentary and I couldn't. So if anybody has any thoughts, let me know. But there was a documentary for Norway looking back at the year of 2024. And when it comes to King Harold's health crisis in February last year, he was basically actually ended up being pretty close to death at one point. He said, when I got sick, it was suddenly very far from home. Then we were suddenly very far away. That's not saying much. Of course, it's translation, but he suffered a lot from a low heart rate. And so they had to have surgery before they could evacuate him, but he was very sick apparently. So we don't have too much going on for Spain. Obviously, we've covered what a story going on in Sweden, although I will say Princess Sophia is about to pop. There were some pictures that emerged of her looking mega prego recently. So it looks like she's about to give birth any day now. And in this week in royal history, we do have the death warrant on January 29th, 1649 was signed for the execution of King Charles I. And then he was executed on January 30th. And then when the monarchy was restored, let's see, 13 of the men who signed the warrant, and there were 59 of them, were eventually executed. Others, I'm sure, died in between. So, guys, that wraps up this edition of the Crown Report. And we have more coming, of course, in the, what is it called? In the Royal Wire, the newsletter. But I want to write a little bit of something on Catherine, and I want to do a video on this too, but Catherine obviously saying, I don't want people to focus on my fashion, so I'm not going to reveal the fashion details, but that's sort of, they've tried that before and it didn't work. So what does the future hold? I'm not sure. So, and I did get a question early in the day. What is this little thing behind me? This is actually like an organizer thing. There's a calendar there. I just put my end card there just for now. So it's a nice little screensaver, but it has a little calendar there. And today is Queen Mary's birthday, guys. She is 53 years old. So yeah, that is all we got for today. So guys, any questions here? Carol says, love your dress. And you were right. It is a dress. It is a dress. So I thank you. Carol says, yeah, the fashion bloggers are pretty quick to identify. Yes, it is. They're so quick to identify. Aw, is it your birthday too? K Coffee? Miss K, me too. It's 62 years for me. Congratulations. Happy birthday. Phyllis says, I would like to receive the Royal Wire. Okay, so there is a link in the description box down below if you want to click on it. And I've been trying to do these a bit more. They do take a little bit of time to get together. You have to obviously, write it and edit it and everything. So hopefully they get better over time. But if you're interested, there's a link down below. Or I guess I could put a link in the comments as they're going by. Let me see. So it's a little picture of a blonde girl behind a computer screen, because that is what I do most of the time. So there we go. It's just through Substack. And yeah. Shell Bell says, I have a feeling there are major security concerns with Catherine, and that's why they don't announce stuff. I don't really think that's the case. I really do think it's more due to health issues or health potential health complications that maybe kind of come up. I don't think that the security issue has kind of increased all that much, to be quite honest. It could, not saying that's not possible, but I really do think it's more to do with just making sure that she's got her, like, the health things are going well, and then that she really can do particular things at particular times. Stewart says the UN has no input into how the Japanese family do anything, as do anybody else. I agree. I think they themselves are messing themselves up, but I mean, I can just have that opinion. I'm not trying to force them to change it. Miss K says, I used to really like Martha once upon a time. Yeah. I mean, she's always, once I learned more about her and, you know, talking to angels and stuff, I was like, oh, she's a little loosey goosey, but marrying him, yeah, not the greatest. Carol says, I don't agree with Japan's succession laws, but it is their monarchy. Yes, it is. So Miss K says, as a month, they do travel. They've been to Germany not so long ago, but Charles fell sick not shortly after becoming king. The Commonwealth states have priorities. Yes, he did go to France. Oh gosh, didn't he go somewhere else fairly recently? And I'm totally forgetting. Anyway, so yeah, he did. They did go to Australia and everything. There's a trip to Canada that needs to happen, but obviously with the changeover in power with Justin Trudeau, because he's resigned and stuff. Well, he's there and he's resigned. I don't get how Canadian politics works, so I'm not going to speak too much into it, but they may change it recently. Miss K says, my sister, she lives in Luxembourg, recently shopped on the same supermarket. It's called Cactus, like the Grand Duchess and her younger son. Apparently the son was seriously pretty. Aw, that's so fun. Yes, Germany, France, and Poland. The king has visited. Oh yes, he went to Auschwitz the other week. We were just talking about that. So I was like trying to think of official tours, but Carol says, agree. The Crown Prince couple needs to answer questions. The need for privacy is beyond the need to answer questions and assume responsibility. Yes, like he does need a certain level of privacy, of course, but he was also using funds from, like, he also was abusing certain things that are related to the government and taxpayer funds. You can't just say, well, he deserves privacy. I'm like, but you need to use my taxpayer funds correctly. That would be my counter argument. For what it's worth. Azima says, I only feel bad for the king and queen. Ingrid Alexander is the one that will be affected by this. The crown prince needs to put his daughter first. Yes, I would say minimize. It's like, it's hard because it's like you want to help him, but if he doesn't want help and he's making everything worse, like, I don't know where the line is. Carol says, Lenny, I feel for her. Marius's behavior needs to end, but Mara enables his behavior. Yes, Marjorie says that Marius is getting worse and worse. He really needs help, but won't admit to any wrongdoing. Spoiled and enabled by Mentamarat. It's just awful. Yeah. And I've mentioned it before. I do feel sorry for him because I feel like in some ways he never had like a full, his own family, because his sister, like his parents were only together when he was like really small and then split. And so then she had her family. His father had his family. And so I feel sorry for somebody who's kind of in the middle that doesn't have that full family feel in a way. Janice says, so horrible. All my prayers for Sweden and those who have been affected. Yes. Yes. And as Evelyn says, 11 dead, including the shooter, and then at least 5 seriously wounded. Oh, so it was to the west of Stockholm. Yeah, and Bear Jumbo says, Catherine understands that people have come to see the Princess of Wales, not Catherine Middleton. Yes, great point. Great point. And I think that's so critical to understand. Like, as any royal, that's so critical to understand. They're not really there necessarily to see you individually as a person, because maybe you're not that talented. Maybe you don't have that much, but they're there to see the title. And that's what Meghan did not understand. She didn't understand that they were not there to see her individually as a person. They were there to see the woman who married Prince Harry, because Prince Harry is related to the Queen of England. That is where the interest lies, not really anywhere else. Lady Aviator says, I didn't think they were allowed to own firearms in Sweden. Why is the mainstream media not covering this? Don't know the specifics. I know at least in Norway, I think it's legal actually to own firearms. So he did own the firearm legally, is my understanding, at least the brief I saw. Nika says, you can just tell that Catherine and William are doing everything the way it is best for them and their family. Before the Queen died, they certainly had to follow a lot of rules that they didn't always agree with. Yes, I loved the engagement this week. Gretchen the First says, where Catherine did the hand paint and the little girl was painting her hand. Yeah, that was cute. Desert Mermaid says, Brittany tried putting a doctor school type of pad on your heels to keep them from slipping off your feet. I had the same problem to cut your shoe. Yeah, I'm like, I've tried that. It doesn't seem, I might have to just get super creative on how some of those tips and tricks just don't seem to work for me and make things more uncomfortable. So I just got to figure it out. K Coffee says, hi, everyone. I remembered the Crown Report Live. Why, thank you. I'm glad you remembered it. So Denise says, I think 2025 will be a much better year for the Wales' family. I pray that it is. Me too. Jill says, the Princess of Wales is definitely in her element. So good to see her out and about. And so happy for her and her family. Yes. Mary says, hi, Brittany. I think we could all remember that Catherine performs her most important role of duty every day, parenting the future king and extended royal family. We don't want another Harry. Very true. That's not to say, obviously, that when they're parenting their kids, it's actually a huge part of what they need to do. But it's kind of, again, it's all comes down to balance. It's all comes down to balance. You don't want to seem to be too one way or the other. That's a careful balance. I see, especially, and I know it's just so different because of the intense media interest in the Waleses overall, but like, Princess Estelle has been doing royal engagements since she was a toddler. Like, she goes out with her parents quite a bit. She seems very comfortable with her role. And again, the Wales' situation is very different. So I totally understand, but we do tend to see some other royal kids very young out and doing royal engagements very young. So to each their own, but you just got to strike that balance between making sure that you are seen and not seen like you're hiding. There's a difference there. So Marjorie says, Catherine looked marvelous in the Zara dress. Just shows that price doesn't matter, always about style and fit. Exactly. And she's had that dress for years. And so it's nice to have that good reminder. Yeah, Carol says the little girl says she wanted the princess. Yes, she did. Nika says one of my favorite videos of Catherine is when she's giving out medals to little girls and they suddenly want a hug from her and you can see the happy surprise on her face. Yes, and I think they've done a very good, I think I like how Catherine's stuff seems very natural. Felt like the stuff with Meghan walking around with the girl in Colombia was very forced. Like, they chose that girl to hold hands with Meghan and walk around with her. It just didn't seem very natural to me. I'd have to look at the video again, but all that interaction with Catherine and the kids seemed extremely natural. Like, they just liked her and wanted to grab onto her. Gretchen the First says, the way Kensington Palace is setting expectations is smart PR strategy. Always better to underpromise and overdeliver than the other way around. 150%. 150%. So I think it's perfectly reasonable. And again, we don't know this for sure, but again, my thought is that most likely they know that some days they might plan something and she really might not feel up to it. And so they're like, okay, we have this on the calendar. It is there. So she can go do it. Great. But if she can't, then nobody is the wiser. It's generally the idea. I'm sure the people who know or know, but they are told, hey, we'll reschedule this. This will be fine. And they totally understand. Or maybe Sophie goes, or maybe William goes. Maybe they do different things. This was obviously connected to her early years project. And so it makes sense that she is going to do that. Anderson says there is a reason why Catherine is called the children's princess. Yes. Catherine asks, I loved how she asked permission to hold the little girl's hand. Unlike someone else I won't mention. Yes. Always good to ask permission. I always find Megan very weird. She touches people a lot. A lot. Nika says, I think it's good that they are using social media better to be seen. There have also been a lot of personal messages recently. I think this new concept is working. Yes. And I forgot to mention Catherine's post about the cancer recently, which I really, really liked. But basically, let me find it. It's on X here. Of course, it was a picture actually taken by Prince Louis. And we'll share it here real quick. I'm so sorry, guys. I forgot to mention it. I meant to. So many things happened so shortly. So this is a lovely picture of Catherine in the woods. Louis took the picture. And I love this picture because it symbolizes a couple things. Number one, it's just a mom walking around the woods with her young son and he wants to take her picture and she does probably something as his request or to have some fun. And she decides to do this. And you can see the frost here, which is really amazing. So it's like a frosty, chill morning. They're walking. She adds this picture, which I'm sure maybe she took or Louis took, and says, don't forget to nurture all that which lies beyond the disease. And this was for World Cancer Day. And I love this little statement from her because it is so powerful to say, and I think there's a good balance here to have, is that you don't forget to nurture what lies beyond the disease. So she's acting that out. Yes, cancer is a part of her life, but it's not going to define her life. And I think some people do let it sort of come to define their lives. And so I think it's really important for her to be out doing things that she loves doing and being with her kids and stuff. I think this is a great message to share. All right, we got Trina co-star. Hey, Brittany and Miss Pippa. Oh, negative 21 wind chill, negative 33, a little bit of a cold snap. That sounds so cold. I guess that's Celsius, maybe? Or Fahrenheit. Either way, you are shaking in your booties, and I would not be going outside. I feel like Miss Pippa, you can pee it. So I was like, I don't want to, but she would be pretty quick too. She'd be like, no, Mom, I don't want to go outside. That's really cold. Asma says, you know what they say about marrying in haste. Yep, we shall see with this new Prince of Greece and his likely pregnant fiance. I always feel bad saying that, but it's like usually right. I was like, she's even got a pregnant waddle. So Louise says, yay, happy not to miss another Crown Report, miss the last few. And while I know you like to do your Saturday live streams, this is just better. Yeah, I was kind of thinking this week, because sometimes obviously filming and editing things, it just takes a lot of time. And sometimes I don't always get time to do things. So I thought, because there's like so many stories in a week, and sometimes I'm like, well, this story is just not really worth an entire video, but some people still want to talk about it. So it might be something where we do maybe a bit of a format like this, maybe in the evening or afternoon on a weekday, where it's more going over the stories that we didn't get to maybe this week about Harry and Meghan or other things, and less popcorn like Saturday mornings. And because I have a couple weekends this month where I probably can't do the Saturday mornings, that might be what we try instead. Because I know some people like the popcorn, some people don't. I do find the popcorn sometimes it's a long time to be on a live stream answering a bunch of questions. It's a lot of fun, but some days I get really tired too. So that might be something we try too. Anna says, hello, everyone. Hello, Brittany and Pippa from Romania. Oh, gosh. Becky has almost 80 degrees in Northeast Texas. Wow. Yeah, it's actually got quite warm here yesterday. It's back to cooler temperatures, though. And I'm like, is it really like spring yet? It just doesn't seem. Yes. So Olga says, do you think they're making surprise visits so Harry and Meghan don't clash with them? No, I just think it's sort of a natural thing that makes sense during this time. Ella says, sorry, but it was not a good idea for the crown prince to marry Mette Marit, not because she was a single mother, but because of the drugs, criminal friends. Marius's father was a drug dealer. That is probably true. And it was actually pretty controversial at the time. And she sort of amended things and then it all went wrong. Shaz says, Brittany, do you think that about Kensington Palace announcing they would no longer be talking about Catherine's fashion? I think it's kind of they've tried that. I'm like 100% sure. I'd have to look it up. 100% sure they tried this like 10 years ago. Didn't work then. Not going to work now. Part of being a royal is actually telling a story through your fashion. So I don't think you can totally, and that doesn't happen all the time, but Catherine, like many royals, puts a lot of thought into the outfits that they're wearing to reflect various events. And people are going to find out anyways. So, and they're going to talk about it anyways. Why not just say it? It's not that it's taking away. They'll still always talk about it. You're a woman in the royal world until you hit your maybe 70s or 80s. Then they'll probably stop talking about your fashion. Just life. Margaret says, brilliant that Catherine's engagements will not be announced more than a day in advance. It thwarts you know who. Probably. Let's see. Anna says, hello. I'm being a little bit behind due to work, but want to say hi to everyone. Hello. Diane said, hello to everyone. Hi, Brittany. I've been listening, but busy here. Totally understand. Azima says, Marius isn't unique. Plenty of children are children of divorced parents. I mean, it's true, but I think it would be hard if you didn't have another sibling and you're just like on your own, and you don't feel like you totally belong with either sibling set. Not that they're not trying to, but you always feel a little outside. So not excusing him at all. Just I like to, one of the things I think about is about being a historian too, is trying to understand people where they're at. And I can imagine that it would be hard to feel like you don't totally have a family that's quote unquote yours. So that would be hard. It would just be hard. So I don't fault him for that. So Canadian Beaver says Trudeau is still our prime minister. He has simply not got permission from King Charles to prorogue closed government until the Liberals elect a new leader. Thank you for explaining that, because I have no idea. Know nothing about parliamentary systems, really. Chantal says, where is Queen Camilla? I feel like we've been missing her for a while. She did do an engagement very recently, so she's doing pretty well. But yeah, there's been some sort of talk as well that she is struggling a bit health-wise. And so, I mean, she's in her mid-70s. That wouldn't be a big surprise. So it's definitely some challenges going on for sure in the British monarchy. And again, which is why I go back to, they need more working royals. And Catherine and William's kids, they're going to have to work for the royal family. I don't think there's not going to be much option. I think William wants to try, but like really you need more working members, because you need people doing all those little engagements that Sophie and Edward and do. You need those people. You just really, really do. If Catherine and William can't do it, it's going to have to fall to Charlotte and Louis, or otherwise they're going to have to recruit somebody from within the family that's an adult right now. Because otherwise the future is basically going to be Catherine and William, George, and whoever George's wife is. And I just, especially with Catherine's health issues, because she will always have to be, we don't know what type of cancer she has. There's always a possibility. I think part of the reason they didn't mention it is because people could speculate about reoccurrences and stuff like that. And they don't want to go down that route, which I totally get, or prognosis for that particular cancer or something like that. I understand that. And I think that makes perfect and complete sense. But Catherine now has a very serious health issue that will affect her the rest of her life. She will be constantly monitored for a reoccurrence. She might have one. Hopefully she doesn't, but that's a distinct possibility. And so you have somebody who you could say is kind of compromised and can't be the full time that maybe a normal person could in that situation. So it's like, I don't know what they're going to do. They have to rethink what the future is. I think William wants a really streamlined approach, but that's not going to work, especially if he really only wants to do sort of, you could say, the big things. Like he wants to have, I understand, more of an impact on every single engagement and stuff like that. But you need somebody doing that. And then you need somebody going and meeting people day in, day out, like Anne and Edward do, or specifically Anne. You need an Anne. You got to have an Anne in the roster. So I don't know who that is, but we shall get there. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll go ahead and wrap that up. I actually like this. Actually looks pretty good there in the corner. I wasn't sure, but I was like, yeah, that's not too bad. So there's an actual calendar there, in case you're wondering. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, more stuff coming soon. Hopefully we have time for a lot of videos, because I got a lot of video ideas for today, because I feel like we need to talk about Meghan's sort of, I feel like her narcissistic meltdown is starting to become a bit real, because, there's some interesting things about that. So we do got Olga here saying people making fun of Meghan Markle because she's too cheap to buy Billy's merch for a website, which is kind of funny. So Lizzie B, King Charles wanted to shorten the list, but the difference, Great Britain and another country like Denmark, is that the Commonwealth is big and they need more royals to cover more ground. Yes. The UK also has like 60 to 70 million citizens. Denmark has like 6 million. So there's a big difference in terms of just simple royals. And Lizzie B gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Lizzie B. I really do appreciate it. I'm sure somebody else will as well. Lizzie says, I hope Charlotte becomes the next Anne. Me too. They need an Anne. They just need an Anne. Shaz says, thanks, Brittany, for keeping us updated on all things royal. Hugs to you, Miss Pippo. Why, thank you. Allison says, Louis reminds me of my brother when he was little. My brother is now a doctor. Oh, very awesome. Yeah, I think Louis will be amazing. He's just rambunctious. It's cute. Andrew says, thank you. That might have been for the membership. And Azima says, I'm ignoring Meghan. Meghan, carry on with your temper tantrum. I don't care. I don't even know if it's a temper tantrum. I think it's a meltdown a bit over the chaos of everything. Carol says, thank you, Brittany and Chant. Yes, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I shall talk to you soon and have a wonderful evening and amazing, maybe morning, afternoon, wherever you are. All right, guys.